That alone, verse number 94. The world and the truth exist intermixed. This state is one of great iniquity. In this, which is beyond the grasp of word and mind, how can any right reason operate? Commentary. After establishing the validity of the transactional world on an existential and teleological foundation, Narayanaguru now leads us to a further critical examination of the world of appearance and reality. The transactional world is generally looked upon as a world of appearance. The appearance of what? There should be something which causes an appearance, even if the appearance is to some extent distorted or false. There should be something behind it to provide the occasion for it to appear. This is usually inferred to be the reality behind the appearance. All we know is the appearance of things, and we can easily come to the conclusion that reality is just as it appears. For those who think that way, all problems are solved. Materialists think that the objective world is the real world, and that our sensory perception is the way of knowing reality. What you see is really out there. What you touch has tangibility. What you hear accurately describes the audible world. No problem. But what one can perceive is only a small part of the whole. If you are thoroughgoing in limiting yourself to perception, the world becomes confined to the room you are in. You cannot even believe there is another side to the wall because you can't see it. The so-called perceptual world is not really perceptual to any great extent. We complement it with our memories, hearsay, conjectures. Any number of things are put together to supplement the limitations of the visible world. So, if materialists were thoroughgoing in examining their beliefs, they would admit only what was immediately perceived. That's why Narayanaguru once directed Natarajaguru, as part of his discipline, to sit in a room and try to imagine there was nothing other than what he saw. If you can do this, you instantly solve millions of problems. Right now, in this room, your mother and father, your brothers and sisters, neighbors, creditors, tax collectors, none of them are around. All the problems connected with them are irrelevant because they aren't present. It's a very peaceful room. To true materialists, the area of the world becomes very limited. They only look to direct perception and equate that with reality. But they are not generally very rigorous about it. A great peace should come from the annulment of so many problems. Since that doesn't happen, it is evident they are not strict in their understanding. Once you start adding complementary aspects to the world of immediate perception, it is hard to know where to end it. Should you stop at your own memory, then you are cognizing plus recognizing. Or should you also admit input from other people? Then do you allow only what they directly perceive? Or should you also admit their intuitive understanding or even their rational speculation? If someone gives you a model for an atom, you should understand it is just a figure postulated by them to explain some aspects of atomic behavior. In the same way, you use maps to understand the structure of the surface of the earth. But you need to remember the map is not the territory. How many such crutches do we put on top of what we really know by direct perception? The epistemology of knowledge is a very complex thing. Those who think that what they see is reality have to be careful to subtract all those unexamined aspects from their perspective. On the other hand, those who think that what they see is only appearance have to somehow account for the reality behind the appearance. If I see this chair and claim it is only an appearance, what is there to cause me to perceive the appearance of the chair? Many people think there is some energy source which stimulates the sensory system, causing the formation of an image. If a number of people have the same experience, we conclude there must be an identical source creating a similar experience for all of them. The idea is that the source is real, and each of us experiences our own version of it as an appearance. There are others who say reality is that which remains all the time as the very substance of our experience, and that reality is consciousness. Like the wave, which is a modulation of water, all appearances are modulations of consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is the only reality, and whatever modulations there are only appearances. So many theories. Which should you choose, and where should you abide? There are schools of logic, like the medieval schoolmen, the theologians, who all swear by the logic of Aristotle. Aristotelian logic gives priority to objective experiences, to what is perceived through the senses. This school of thought believes that things possess essential qualities that make them what they are, their essence. Buddhists disagree with this idea, contending there are no essences. They think that all nameable things have a dialectical correlation with the idea of them. In other words, that they exist solely as thought forms and not as essences. The idea of essences was very important to the schoolmen, because they maintained human beings have an essence that is real and remains even after the body perishes. The essence of the sin you have committed also persists along with your essence. So ultimately, there is a need for you to redeem your sin. Simply by dying, you won't escape. You have to kneel down before Jesus and say, you accept him, otherwise you will never be pardoned. You will go immediately to the house of the devil and be tortured forever. So the schoolmen wanted to hold on to the idea of the essence, and at the same time they wanted to hold on to the idea of the objective reality of this world. They accepted both, saying objectivity is the appearance of the essence. There is a strong circumstantial link between appearance and essence. It appears that you sinned, therefore the sin occurred. It's such a well-knit business, you don't know how you are tricked. Narayana Guru says this is an injustice, that there is iniquity here. You are not given a chance to state your case, since logically you have already been given the proof. The Buddhists ask, if there is something called real, is there any way of knowing it? You say you are seeing a book, but do you see it? According to Dignaga, you don't see a book. What is book? Book is a name. Out of your perception, you are constructing categories called books, chairs, etc., which are all just names you have coined and given to the categories. In this way, you have made a whole network of pigeonholes. You are satisfied when you can put any given experience into one of these categories with a definite name. This is exactly what psychiatrists are doing. They think once they have given a name to a disease, they have explained it. But all they really know is a name. In the last verse, we were speaking of Manushi and Chakshushi. They are the two wives who weave the whole garland of experience. Chakshush means the eyes. When your eyes look at something, the first perception that comes to you can be called perception. In the second, third, and fourth moments, and so on, you are no longer seeing it. When the first impression comes, the sensation, the chakshushi, passes on the data to the manushi. Sensations turn into cognition. You think about and interpret what you have seen. Cognition changes into recognition almost immediately. You recognize it to be a book. That means you have structured the meaning of your perception in your thoughts, and thereafter you see only the meaning of your perception in the object. As soon as you start using words, you are getting into dialectics, which belongs to the world of semantics. The first impression is only for a split second. Then Manushi takes over, and the whole thing is mentally created and stabilized. A name is given to what you have created, and thereafter it is a nominal perception. You are far removed from the real basis of your perception. All you can say about the real is that neither your sensation nor your mind reaches it. Between the sensation and the mind, you are busy structuring an understandable entity to which you can give a name. Ultimately, all our understanding of sensations is a nominalistic understanding, dialectically conceived. On such a basis, it is hard for right reason to operate. This is what Narayana Guru is saying here. What a man of common sense with a personal identity takes for granted as this transactional world of experience is very confusing. Sir Arthur Eddington goes to great lengths in his study of the physical universe to understand the nature of it. He explains the table on which he rests his hand to write as being two tables. One is the common sense table which he can see and work on, and the other is the physicist's table which cannot be seen. The physicist's table is not a compact piece resting anywhere. It is made up of molecules that are flying around at tremendous speed, swarming and bumping against each other. Some cohesion is maintained by mutual attraction, since if they just flew apart, there would be no table. Fortunately, they do not take that liberty. They huddle around, so a form is maintained. Eddington speaks of how difficult it is for a physicist to enter a room. The Earth is revolving in one direction at 19 miles a second, rotating in another direction at 1,000 miles an hour, and the whole system is moving through the galaxy. That door sill over which he has to put his leg is moving at a terrible speed in several directions at once. If he somehow manages to leap in, there is no guarantee he won't slip through the molecules. And if he doesn't slip through, it's because the molecules of the plank of wood are bumping against his feet. Who is more authentic, a first-class physicist or the common man who knows nothing of these ideas? Naturally, the physicist knows much more than we do, so the apparent chair or room or table is the confused one. Whether you are a philosopher or a scientist, you cannot escape this problem of discerning what is real and what is unreal. The reality you arrive at through reasoning and the reality or transactional facts that are presented to you through your senses are opposed to each other. Yet you see the one in exactly the same place as the other. The Guru says, Niti Ketu. This is a great injustice. The Katha Upanishad says that the Creator made a great blunder, a big mistake. When he created human beings, he did not turn the eye inward, he turned it outward. Therefore, we can only see things outside and do not know what is happening within. The Guru is using the same gentle kind of humor here in speaking of injustice. So, what is the outcome? We do not see any limitation to what is presented here. It cannot be grasped by the mind or described in words. The Upanishads say of that which causes all this, that when you try to grasp it with the mind recoils upon itself, and when you try to describe it, the words recoil upon themselves. There is a transcendence which is very elusive. There is no way of discerning the truth of it. Narayana Guru asks, if such is the situation, how can you bring any kind of logic into this field? The two great schools of logicians in India, the Nyayikas and Vaisheshikas, claim that you can understand everything with the help of logic. To this, the Vedantins respond, no, your logic has its limitations. Within small fields of reference, what you say is certain, but do not try to prove the ultimate. There is a similar dichotomy in modern physics. If a carpenter measures a beam for a building, he takes for granted that lines are straight and right angles are possible, and that parallel lines never meet. For all intents and purposes, these are true. If an Einstein comes along and says, your line follows the shape of space, which is curved by gravity, the carpenter will reply, Mr. Einstein, don't meddle with me. This works. I can do it this way and build a building. There is no question about it. So don't bring in your higher logic. But if you want to send a rocket to another planet, calculations on paper will help. If you aim right at the target, you will miss by a tremendous amount. You have to take into consideration all the complex motions involved using a mathematical model. Narayana Guru uses the term pramanam, which is here translated as right reason. Prama means certitude. That which gives certitude is called a pramana, an authority. As we have previously mentioned, certitude is attained through the pramanas of direct perception, inference, analogy, word testimony, non-contradiction, and the argument of residue. If you use one pramana, one of these authoritative ways of arriving at certitude, to discern truth and also to make sense in the transactional world, it is going to contradict some other pramana. This causes the enigma of paradox. There is a horizontal aspect of life and a vertical aspect. If you don't know how to coordinate them properly, you become confused. The Guru doesn't want to make a fixed scheme to put into your hands. If he did, you would make another mistake. You would then have ready-made pigeonholes in which to place your ideas of horizontal and vertical. The next day, what you found to be horizontal might have become verticalized, and you won't be flexible enough to make the change. There is a story about a Zen master who had a very dear novice who he taught to put koans properly. There was another master who had a novice who was not so bright, who couldn't catch the spirit of it. The two boys met on the way to the market. The bright boy asked the dull one, "Where do you go?" "To the market." "How do you go if you have no legs?" The dull boy burst into tears and ran back to his master, that the other boy had defeated him. His master told him a clever rejoinder in case the boy asked him that question again. He strove mightily to commit it to memory. The next day they saw each other again, and the bright one asked, "Where do you go?" "To the market." "If there is no road, how will you get there?" The dull boy realized the answer he had memorized wouldn't work. So again he cried and ran back to his master. His master gave him a good answer for that question, which he spent the day repeating. The next time they met, the boy asked, "Where do you go?" "To the market." "Have a good day." The world is not what you anticipate. You cannot just take an answer from a guru or someone else and use it blindly. You have to make learned wisdom your own, and then evolve your own way of applying it to things. And the free translation of verse 94 is, "There is an inherent iniquity in the unreal world, and reality presenting themselves as one indiscernible whole. To these, which cannot be demarcated, verbally or conceptually, how can any role of methodology be applied?"